welcome. Let me switch my camera here so I can see you. Oh, hi guys. Okay, hello. Thanks for coming. If you are new here, a real quick spiel. My name is Emily Williams, the co-founder of Think Creative Collective. You can find us on Instagram at Think Creative Collective and online, thinkcreativecollective.com. So just for the new folks, if you haven't been hanging around, we would love for you to join our private community over at thinkcreativecollective.com/join. You're going to get access to our private Facebook group of 1,300 creative entrepreneurs, and just like yourself, I get to hang out and get inspired and help each other grow. You will also unlock a free all-access pass to our Backstage resource library where you can find a ton of printables, worksheets, guides, ebooks, and more to help you grow your small business. Take it a step further and go check out bizchickcoop.com. It's our private, members-only resource area built just for you to help your business grow. So today we are talking about lighting and photography, tips and tricks on how you can manage to create amazing social media graphics with your iPhone or amazing blog graphics with a DSLR. So we'll go a little bit over lighting tricks, tips, some stuff that I use to diffuse lighting, strategies that I use just inside my home office to get amazing high quality images super quickly. Or, hey, working on your planner right now, awesome. Second Stitch, we love how you made all of your worksheets into that spiral binder. It was super cute. Probably a lot of other members are gonna maybe want you to try to do the same thing for them, but it was incredible. It was so great. Thanks for sharing that. So we've been on a couple scopes, which you can get access to all the scopes that we've done at thinkcreativecollective.com/blog. But we've done a lot of scopes about photography, styling, tips and tricks to get the best layout. A lot of you were talking about how you needed to work on getting your better original image, that we sometimes can't rescue a poor image or a poor quality image no matter what the editing we do. So keep in mind that all of the stuff that I'm going to teach you today is geared towards quick and dirty. So fast results, quick editing, quick posting for on the go, or just because you have better things to do all day than sit behind a computer and edit. Know that the edits we do for Instagram take less than 10-15 seconds, and the edits that we do for our blog posts take really no more than a minute or two, but that's because we have to upload them to the computer. So we're really focusing on getting a high quality image before we even think about editing it. Editing is really just like that icing on the cake to bring that image to 100% quality, but we're not rescuing a bad image and trying to make it cute with some edits. So there's a couple of tricks that we're going to talk about today in regards of what lighting you should be chasing, how to kind of set up in your own house or your own room to get the best results. So today we're sitting in my home office. We have amazing lighting in here. I have double windows facing the south and a single window facing the west. That is the best light that you could possibly work on getting for your own shots. So think about the rooms in your own house, your dining room, a guest room, whatever. Maybe it's your entryway. Throw open the windows, throw open the doors, and you're gonna have great light. This room is wonderfully lit from about 10:30 in the morning until maybe 5 in the evening on winter months, and as late as 8 or 8:30 for summer months. So if you work on finding south and southwest windows, you're gonna be golden, and that's all you need to worry about. So a little bit about editing or picture taking and when you can kind of fit it in. So some of you might have a full-time job. You might be coming home and it's already dark. You leave and it's dark, and I get it. It sucks. And when you get home and you're trying to style something for Instagram and you're using lamps just in your house, it's not going to prove the best quality and the best result. And I get it. So there's a couple of different advice tips that I have for you to make the most of when you can shoot. So first, consider batch shooting and batch editing. Now, I know there has to be a day, maybe it's a weekend, maybe you get a random day off during the week. and there's sunlight. You're at home or wherever you're shooting and there's sunlight. So whatever that day is or whatever that time frame is, try to shoot as much as you can in that gap that you have natural sunlight, because that's going to give you the best, highest quality image that you can find no matter what, and it's going to make your editing really simple and really easy. So natural light is key at all times. Know when the lighting is good in your room. If you have north or east, you're going to be better lighting in the morning time. So you might have to get up a little extra early. Sometimes that light fuels in at like 5 a.m. or like right when the sun is coming up, and kind of gets dull or grayed out at about 10:30 or 11. So depending on where your room is and depending how many trees your neighbor has or how tall your house is or what's around you, is going to shade your room a little bit differently. But also consider, if you're in that evening light or that early morning light where the sun hasn't fully come out yet and fully lit up your room, you can use a bulb. It's called a daylight white bulb. You can get it off Amazon. You can pick them up at Lowe's, 2-pack for like $6. It's one of those lights that when you turn the switch on, and it takes forever to kind of brighten, but it's amazing, and it lights up any room. Like literally every nook and cranny in your room will be lit, and it's going to help you get a bright room. The problem with that kind of lighting is if you're shooting at super dark and that's all you have, you're going to have super harsh shadows. It's just what happens when you don't have a lot of light filled in your room to fully illuminate everything that you're looking at. So that being said, always find natural, bright, white sunlight from outside and use it to your advantage. So know when you're able to be home and shoot as much as you can so you can take advantage of that. So I'm going to show you a little bit about kind of what we have going on here in my office, how the sun glare is coming on the surface that I'm wanting to shoot for a blog post tomorrow, and how I'm going to correct that. So I'm going to move you around, and I'm going to pick up this, and I'm trying to keep you plugged into my charger, so I have you in an extension cord, so sorry if we're a little like wobbly right now. Okay, so here is what we've got going on right now. We have a double set of windows facing the west and a single window facing south. And I actually have this wrong. This is the south direction. Anyways, you can see right here that we've got some serious sun glare going on. We've got some harsh shadows and lines from the blinds coming in because that sun is setting just a little bit and it's kind of sinking down into the horizon, and it is giving us some harsh glare. This is going to be no fun to edit out, and it's going to be next to impossible to have a completely even lit space on our white camera here and our black camera here. So what are we going to do to correct it? Well, first we can shut the blinds. So let's try that and see what it does. They're almost all the way shut already. So really, shutting it helps a lot. It's gotten a little bit darker in here, which is still okay. Even though the room overall is dark, we're going to get, and what we're going for is an evenly lit space. So this is still way too harsh and way too bright. So instead of worrying about moving everything that I'm going to shoot, I have these curtains from IKEA. They're just these kind of white, they're sheer. They're not shears, they're actually cotton, but they're not completely solid through. So that helped already a ton. Look at that. So we already have our blinds kind of diffused really, really nicely. So we have double diffusion. So we have our blinds closed, white blinds closed, and our white sheer over the blinds, which help diffuse that a ton. But it's still a little harsh, and I want my editing to be super quick and super fast. So I'm gonna do everything I can to get a good shot from the very beginning. So I'm gonna plop up this other diffuser I have. We have a link directly to this exact diffuser, thinkcreativecollective.com/thingswelove. Look at that. So this is the big diffuser that we're using. It's like 20 bucks off of Amazon. It's gonna be so worth it. It not only helps diffuse light that's coming in a little too harshly, but it helps bounce off light when you have a dark, shadowy corner on your image as well. Holy crap, it's like magic. We just took away all the blind spots and all the harsh shadowing over our space that we're shooting today, right? So now what we're gonna do is be able to set our camera settings if you're using a DSLR, and I'll go over a little bit of recommended settings, or literally just shoot with our iPhone, edit in Pick Tap Go, and we're gonna have such a pretty, nice, evenly lit image to work with that you can edit straight from your phone and not have to be super crazy technical in Photoshop or Lightroom. Look at that, like it's just so pretty, right? So now let's go over a couple of the equipment that I use. I wanted to show you that lighting really quickly before the sun continued to dip away. But here's the equipment I use if I'm doing a blog post image. I always shoot with my DSLR on the blog posts because I want those to be super high quality. They're gonna be on the web. And so I need those to be as high resolution and as large of a file as I can get. We also add text to those, and so we need it to be portrait and not square. And we always crop it for square for Instagram. But here's the professional equipment that I use. It's my Nikon DSLR D600 camera. Right now I have my 50mm lens on there, but I typically use this 24-70. I love this lens. It's a zoom lens. It helps me, I like stand on a stool right here and I stand above my setup and I use my 24-70 lens so I can zoom way out and it gets my entire image. It doesn't crop anything, everything's nice and focused, and I can upload that to the computer and edit it really nicely. So another tip that you could do, we have a big table here that we set our blog post stuff on to take images. You can literally just toss your display down on the floor and use the lighting that gets a little bit diffused just by being down on the ground, and the blinds don't kind of in that picture. So we're going to talk a little bit about settings, and I'm going to see if you guys have any questions coming in. I think I saw that I missed them. It's a full it's not a crop sensor, so it's a full DX frame camera. I think I saw one of the questions about the DSLR. We have the direct link to that on thinkcreativecollective.com/thingswelove as well. So you'll be able to see exactly which DSLR I use. I think it's an older model, but it's still amazing and it still works. But know that 99% of the images that we use on our Instagram are shot with our iPhones. And we make sure we're getting a quality image from the get-go. So it's not dark, it's not grainy, it's evenly lit, and it's in a bright space. So we can edit that nicely in Pick Tap Go, and we don't have to make up an image that's lost a lot of data. So yeah, you have a Nikon D3200. That's a great camera. It is a crop sensor, so what you'll notice is some of the lens that you use crops your image in a little bit closer than what the lens says it can do, and that's just because of the sensor frame that you're using, but it's an amazing camera. The D3200 is the exact camera I used for 2 full years of my photography business. So I didn't upgrade into a full frame for 2 years. So that camera can get you a long way. And the Nifty 50 is an amazing lens and will get you far. The Pick Tap Go is an app. Yes, it's our favorite app. It's $1.99 in the App Store. If you have Android, you can look for Afterlight, I think is what the Android version, but it is phenomenal. We have an exact recipe on how to edit on our blog. You can search Pick Tap Go because sometimes it gets a little confusing, but we really like it because you can layer recipes, you can turn some down the strength and the opacity of them, and it's awesome. You can save your recipes too. But let's talk a little bit about camera settings. So if you're using anything other than an iPhone, remember, if you're using a smartphone, find the light, find the sunlight. Try to get it soft and diffused so there's no harsh glares or harsh shadows over what you're trying to see, because you're not going to be able to edit those out. No matter what app you're using, there's always going to be a spot that's super blared out or a spot that's super shadowy if you're not working on getting a completely evenly lit space. So if you're using a DSLR, what are the settings that I use inside to get amazing photography from inside my house? Like, I don't have crazy studio lights. I don't have any crazy lit bulb diffusers going on here. There's nothing more than my $20 diffuser that I pop open sometimes. And I do have a couple of studio lamps, tabletop lamps, I'll show you here. These were like 40 bucks, and they're also on that same page. This is what it is. So it has a daylight bulb inside, and it just sets on the tabletop. Guys, I only bring that out when I'm shooting product photography. So if I know it has to be completely evenly lit or really focused light from the sides, I don't bring that out for a blog post or Instagram post or anything else. So you have a Nikon D7000. Okay, so you're asking to upgrade to a full frame. First of all, I'm sure you've looked if you are thinking about upgrading. Full frames are very expensive. So we're talking anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 for just the body. No lenses, no batteries, no memory cards. So they're very, very expensive. So only if you're really shooting professionally for your website or for clients would I recommend upgrading, because then it's going to pay off for you. Now, on the flip side of that, since they are so expensive, they're amazingly made, like amazing. If you're not using that many clicks on it per year, it could last you 10 or 15 years. Nikon and Canon both are made with amazing parts and amazing pieces that it is a very, very good investment, but a full frame versus a crop sensor isn't gonna make or break what most typical hobbyist or DIY photogs are using for their business. So let's talk about settings again. Like I said, I use the 24 to 70 millimeter lens. This is my go-to lens. It's a zoom lens. It allows me to zoom in and out super far or super close from one spot. So the nifty 50 is amazing outside of a house. So if you're in a room, the 50 millimeter will only let you back up. You can't zoom out or zoom in with a prime lens, which is what the 50 millimeter is. So if I were in this same setup that I showed you with the teal background and the cameras, I would have to get on probably a 6 or 7 foot ladder and be above that image to get the entire thing in frame, because it's so zoomed into what I'm looking at. Whereas the 24 to 70, I can zoom all the way out to 24 if I want to and get a wide setting. So what's the aperture setting on the 20? This one in particular goes down to a 2.8. They have some that are as low as a 1.2. That's probably another $1,000 more than what this lens was. I think I got this one for $800 or $900. The lower aperture you get, the more expensive they get. But that being said, when you're inside and you're shooting with a Nikon and you have, or a Canon or a DSLR in general, and you have your lens on, there are a couple settings in manual that you can set your camera to get a beautiful, perfectly lit image. So the first thing you want to do is get your aperture open real wide. So if you have a couple different items on your space that you're wanting in focus, you might not necessarily want just super wide aperture. So if you have like 1.8, for example, and you're shooting an image that has 3 to 5 different little things in it, possibly only one of those things will be in focus, because a 1.8 helps blur out the background and it gets you those really, like, they're known as bokeh shots, and they're beautiful, but if you're trying to get everything in focus on your plane, you're going to want to close that aperture a little bit more. I like to keep mine around 2.8, 3.5. That gets me a nice crisp look, but the things I want typically are in focus and the background gets a little bit softer. So 3.8, 3.5, somewhere around there. Then you want your shutter speed. I keep mine as slow as I can per the lens. So my 50 millimeter lens, for instance, you only want to get your shutter speed down to 50. That's the lowest that you want to have it. My 24 to 70, I keep it at 70 or 100. You never want to go lower than what your lens can offer you with your shutter speed, because then you're going to get some kind of shaky and some blurred movements. So I typically keep my shutter speed around 100, if not a little bit higher. Next is the ISO. This is the one that I change most often because it gives me the greatest flexibility without compromising the image. So your ISO is what's letting in the light. So the higher your ISO setting is, the higher sensitivity your camera mirror is to the light that's coming in. So typically an average ISO is about 100. to 200, and that will let you in a good amount of light without giving you any grain, but get you some sunlight in on that mirror. You can shoot on this particular DSLR, I think the ISO can go to 64,000 and down to like -300. So it's crazy town. I stick, again, around 100 to 200 when I'm inside, if it's nicely light and nicely bright in here. If it's a little bit cloudy, if it's overcast, the sun's not coming in, I might have to pop up the ISO to like 600 or 1,000. But really, unless I'm going over 1,600 or 2,000, I still don't lose any quality of my image. It's not grainy, and it's still crisp and clear, and I can edit it still nicely. If you pop it up too high and it's still too dark, that's when you're gonna get grain. And it's not gonna be as crisp and contrast on your image. But I like to keep my aperture and my shutter speed locked. I hardly ever change those, just really depending on what I'm shooting. So 100 at my shutter speed, a 2.8 or a 3.5 for my aperture, and then I change my ISO. That's really what the only setting I change, because I like to keep everything locked in. Changing my ISO from 100 to maybe 600 or 1800, depending on what your sunlight levels are at. So consider the very inexpensive diffuser that I showed you. I'll show you this big guy again in case anybody missed it. It's amazing. It's kind of hard. It's hard to get in the frame, and don't ask me to fold this on air because it's impossible. It's like super sturdy. It's bendable, but it's gonna let your light come in, and it's gonna be diffused, so there's no harsh sun glares or blind glares that you're working on or that you might be working with. Consider a low aperture zoom lens if you're wanting to move to your DSLR. Making sure you don't have any harsh shadows or sunlight glares on your image that you're shooting when you take it with your smartphone, because that's really what's gonna make your image non-fixable, and you can't edit out a bad image. So if we're really focusing on getting a high quality image from the get-go, then your editing is going to be a breeze, and you're going to be able to post up super incredible things super quickly. Someone asked if we shot with film. I haven't shot film in probably 10 or 15 years, and it makes me sad. I miss it so much. I grew up on film. My first Nikon cameras were film back in the day. I was the graduating class that the year I left, they ripped out the Lightroom in our photography studio at my high school, and it made, like, I cried for days. So it was really sad. But no, we're 100% digital these days, and it is kind of nice. It's a lot quicker. You have a lot more consistent results, and for what we're wanting to produce, consistency is key. So yeah, oh, that's awesome. That's really incredible. I would love to see any film that you shoot with that. I love seeing it and love hanging out with it. It's just not something that we can fit into our business or our brand right now, but I would like to pick it up for fun. So if you guys have any other additional questions that I haven't covered, or you want me to go over anything again, I know some of this might get a little heavy, but really focus on even light, no harsh shadows, no harsh sun glares either, south or southwest lighting. Can I explain the f-stop, please? Sure. So the f-stop is your aperture. I like to keep mine really no lower than a 2.5. So if you go down to 1.8, 1.2, if you're trying to get more than one thing in focus, it's going to be blurry on the edges. So we might have 3 to 5 little knickknacks on our image for a blog post, and I want all of those to be in focus. So I try to keep my aperture about 3.5. I can shoot it up even higher. I'm just going to have to pop up my ISO. Any recommendation for lens? If you only do one thing, would you go that low? You could. So you can really see if you pop your aperture down to 1.2, if your lens can go that low, and you pop just one thing and you take a picture of it, and you bring that on the back of your camera, you're not gonna be able to tell. But if you bring that image onto your desktop and you zoom in, the very dead center of that object is gonna be in focus. So say for instance, this is what you're shooting. The small thing on a piece of board, right? if you zoom in this picture, this right here is going to be super crisp because it's a little bit higher. But once you start looking at details that are on the edge, like these little buttons here and even the edge here, all of that's going to start to get blurry. So when you're shooting objects, I don't like to keep my aperture that low because objects aren't blurry in real life. But if you're shooting people or landscape and you really want that kind of frayed soft edge, that's where it really, really looks good. If I'm shooting people, typically only like 2 people. If it gets more than 2 people, I still need to bump that aperture up more. And that's a whole nother ballgame when you're talking about shooting people. But I really only keep it that low if I'm outside and I'm shooting portraits. But if you're shooting physical objects, you really want those to be crisp and clear just because that's what real life is. I would love to share a scope later on if you guys are interested in over the look of my editing in Lightroom. I typically do all of my image adjustments in Lightroom, and then if I do any cropping or add any text to it, we pop that over in Photoshop. Yeah, so maybe in a couple days or next week we'll do a Lightroom tutorial. Awesome. I love Lightroom. It's incredible. It's the only thing I really make super big changes to the images, and it's super fast, guys. I have my editing techniques for our blog post down to like 4 minutes, and that's pretty crazy. I try to batch shoot and bring them all into Lightroom, organize them and edit there, and then export. And Abby typically adds fonts for us and text for our blog graphics, and then we're done. So it's pretty great. Yeah, 4 minutes. I time myself because I try to get it down super quickly because you can spend all day kind of being nitpicky about it, but I've got a system down now. So if you work on getting a good image from the get-go, you can get your editing down super quickly. I always like to think of editing as the icing on the cake. Editing is not what saves an image for me. Editing is not what makes a crap image into a good image, because I don't have that much time. And frankly, I'm not that good of an editor. I don't spend a lot of time teaching those nitpicky details because what I want to know are my camera settings and my lighting settings and getting a good image straight out of camera and bring it in there, and like 2 minutes, I'm done. Yeah, some images I can get really picky on if it's people, but we have a good system down and we know what we're looking for our business and our brand. And if it doesn't fit that, if it doesn't work, then we get it out of there and we try again. So I had a great time hanging out with you guys. Thank you for joining us for another Sunday Scope. I'm so thankful for the hearts and the shares, and we really, really, really appreciate you hanging out with us. Creative Cloud is different than the old version. Oh yeah, for sure. Creative Cloud, well, what's awesome about Creative Cloud, and we have a link to this on our resources page as well. Creative Cloud updates now whenever Adobe wants to upgrade. So you don't have to update and buy new software to download on your computer. Whenever Adobe wants to update Lightroom or Photoshop or anything else, you just update your Creative Cloud and you get it. So it's incredible. It's $9.99 a month for Lightroom and Photoshop on the Creative Cloud, and it is such a good investment. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Thank you so much for your questions, your hearts, your comments, and your shares. We love you. We would love to see you over on Instagram. Snap some pics today. The sun's still out. Use some of these tips. Edit in Pick, Tap, Go, and tag us at Think Creative Collective and use hashtag TCC Tips. And we would love to see what you create and possibly cheer you on in your creative business endeavors. Edit in Pick, Tap, Go. That's the app that we use. It's for the iPhone. You can find it in the App Store. It's $1.99. It's an amazing app. It's the only one we use to edit for Instagram. So there's countless apps out there, and you could spend a lot of time opening up a bunch of different ones to get the right look, but Pick, Tap, Go is by far our favorite. So, okay, thank you for hanging out today. We will catch you guys later. Have a good rest of your Sunday.